Hello and welcome. This is Head to Head on UATV and I'm Oles Garjuk. At the beginning of August, the U.S. Senate passed a $716 billion defense budget for the year 2019. Besides the financial and organizational aspects for the U.S. military, the bill outlines U.S. priorities in international security, such as countering Russian aggression while helping Ukraine restore its sovereignty. To learn more about the implications, we welcome to the studio Mykhailo Samus, Deputy Director for International Affairs at the Center for Army Conversion and Disarmament Studies. Hello and thank you for being with us today, Mr. Samus. So speaking of international security, what is so innovative about this bill for year 2019?
Actually, it's nothing so new if we're talking about the size of the budget or even direction of the budget.
Maybe well, the amount of money is a little bit higher.
Yeah, a little bit because it's 600 billions or 700 billions. It's yeah, for any countries it's a huge money, but actually for United States, which is a leader on and trying to be a leader on the global defense sector, not even the defense sector, because the defense is like supporting of the foreign policy of United States. Of course, they trying to be a leader in this sphere. So, if you're talking about this budget, yeah, it's more concrete, more clear for support for supporting the NATO alliance. And what is interesting, I think that they talking about Ukraine as a line of United States, actually clear, talking about the Ukraine and Georgia, and it was kind of like a list the Poland, Ukraine, Georgia in the one list. So it means that Ukraine and Georgia, for example, is not out of the NATO, is understanding of club of alliance of United States, which is very important for Ukraine and other countries outside of NATO.
So they focus on our country as well. But what steps in particular are provisioned in this budget to help NATO countries, NATO allies, to increase their defense steps? Their defense sphere.
As United States is the main partner of NATO, or let's say main member of NATO, we could talking about the like 70–80% of budgeting of the organization. If we started to analyze the budgeting of NATO, United States is the main supporter, and of course it's not support for alliance, it's support for NATO presence on the eastern flank, and this is the main goal of let's say activities not only for United States but for another main members like UK, France, Germany to push the NATO on the eastern flank to be capable to counter Russia in steps during aggression. Ukraine. It's not even a provocation. It's building capabilities, because before 2014 we just could see that like talking about the eastern flank. After Russia started aggression, occupation in Donbass, occupation of Crimea, NATO finally started to build something, to build capabilities, maybe pretty slowly, because even after now like fifth years of occupation, we see only like intentions to build something serious, because now we have only 4 battalions in the Baltic states, some activities of United States in Poland and Romania, but in reality it's we need to, I mean NATO needs to do a lot in Black Sea, for example, especially very important for Ukraine and Romania and other NATO countries.
Well, as far as I know, in this bill, there is something outlined that some drills are being planned for the upcoming 2019 year with the NATO allies, Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania. Well, but do you mean that the United States is planning to station more military units in Eastern Partnership countries?
Yeah, maybe we cannot talking about the make more soldiers. United States soldiers in Eastern countries, Eastern European countries, but more investment in infrastructure, more investment in equipment like air defense, helicopters, the missile system, air defense missile system, and anti-tank missile system like Javelins, for example, because we saw before, several weeks ago, we saw information that United States government put the order for producing next Javelins for Georgia, Ukraine, and Baltic states. It means that the United States keep this strategy to support Eastern European countries in their capabilities to counter Russian aggression. It's very important. So we cannot talking about more United States soldiers, but more capabilities for alliance for Ukraine, Georgia, and Baltic states, and Poland.
But this policy to deter Russia in Europe, how do you think, is this in sake of U.S. security reasons, or is this being done for the world peace more?
It depends on the countries, of course, because even in NATO, we didn't see, even during this last summit, that they didn't have the joint estimation of Russian threat, because some countries on the southern, like western southern part of NATO in Europe, I mean like Italy or Spain, of course they have more concerns about southern part of the world, the southern flank, and like migration or terrorism, these kind of challenges and threats. For eastern part and for United States, for UK, for Canada, Poland, Baltic states, I mean inside of NATO, this is the main threat.
Russia is the main threat. That's why
Russia is the main threat. For Ukraine, of course, it's very important that United States as a main supporter, main member of NATO, this is understanding is the key element of the United States defense and then the military political strategy, and they promoting this strategy inside of the NATO. It's very important for Ukraine, as we have a actually open war between Ukraine and Russia.
Well, also in this draft bill, it contains a ban on military cooperation between the United States and Russia. It is visible that Russia is being seen as the main threat for the United States. But what is the stance on Ukraine in this draft bill?
Yeah, the situation is that talking about NATO as an organization doesn't support any
no, I mean on the United States.
I'd like to explain, because inside of NATO we have again several clubs. In case of support and military technical cooperation with Ukraine, for example, European countries, they avoid to make some concrete steps toward Ukraine to not even help. I mean, about the cooperation, about the contracts, about selling some new technologies or new systems.
To interfere in the conflict.
Yeah. Talking about the Russia and some possible problems with Russia after this. In United States, we see absolutely great support, and United States is the greatest supporter of Ukraine in case of concrete equipment, concrete weapons, and we saw not even javelins, but a lot of training missions, a lot of goods and equipment which is support Ukrainian armed forces. So I would say that like $1 billion, almost $1 billion for this year after Russian aggression occupation, United States gave to Ukraine.
Since 2014.
Yeah, not of course in money, not in cash.
Yes.
But of course mostly it's training missions.
All the aid provided to Ukraine.
I mean the United States government, they put $1 billion to support Ukraine.
And what can we expect in 2019?
I think,
according to this bill,
for now we cannot say that it could be some more like radical enlargement of this support. But I think we will see the same trends, but maybe more in naval equipment, like smaller ships, maybe missiles, maybe air defense missiles, and of course some electronic system, communication system, which is very important.
Probably some assistance in reforming the defense sector as well.
But reforming defense, it's our task. Actually,
yes,
it's very difficult to support. Even we put in Ukrainian Ministry of Defense $10 billion to make reforms, but Ukrainian officers, Ukrainian generals needs to make it, not United States colonels and generals.
Well, speaking of finances, according to different estimations, the United States plans to allocate $200 to $250 million to Ukraine for improving, well, our defense sector. And the bill states that the funds allocated cannot be used in activities related to the spread of Russia's sovereignty to the Crimea. What does this mean?
Yeah, it's very clear that United States try to be sure that this equipment won't be used by Ukrainian armed forces against Russia without any new aggression. So when we're talking about the javelins, for example, remember it was one of the requests from the United States that Ukraine won't use it on the front line in the Donbass, and the same with Crimea. So because
so we can just have it, keep this lethal weapon, but we cannot use it against the
we could use it after new aggression of Russia. So not in the first strike, I think. So I think it's like a more political mentioning of this situation because of Russia. So put it, and maybe for NATO alliance, because remember in NATO we have a lot of countries which is trying to say that Russia is not really a threat, and we need to avoid to support Ukraine, because if Ukraine get more equipment, more weapon, it will be more and more probabilities for new conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So we need to put conflict without equipment, without weapon.
But what's your opinion? What does this new wave of aggression mean, actually? Does Russia have to, I don't know, attack some new territories of Ukraine so then we can use these new weapons? Or what does this new wave mean?
It means that actually Russia didn't gain any actually goals on the military operations, because of course when they started occupation of Crimea and Donbass, they didn't want to have the small parts of Ukraine. Of course they wanted to have all of Ukraine, and from Ukrainian side is absolutely clear understanding that Russia is Russia is ready to make more and more aggression. So this from United States part, United States side, they means that we United States giving a new weapon, like a defensive one. So if Russia is going to go further, Ukraine will use it, but it's not very nice if Ukraine will use United States weapon against Russia now, for example. When we're talking about everyday fighting between Russian occupation forces and Ukrainian forces on Donbass, it will be not very nice for United States if Ukraine started to use javelins now. In this situation.
So in this situation, Ukraine has to use the weapons, basically the armament produced here in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's our responsibility to use Ukrainian weapon, but when the United States, you see the problem of transferring new technologies and weapons from Western countries to Ukraine is a confidential problem. So we need to build confidence between Ukrainian and NATO to make step-by-step understanding each other. And when Ukraine will show that, okay, we've got javelins put here and use Ukrainian weapon, so next step could be United States ships for Ukraine, missiles for Ukraine, and after this maybe Germany will join this process, maybe France will sell something to Ukraine, because we have a lot of missiles, for example, for ships. And these missiles we could buy in Germany or in France. But for this moment, I'm not sure that France and Germany is ready to sell it to Ukraine.
Okay. Well, this bill on defense priorities is being adopted annually, this budget. How dangerous is this 2019 edition is to Russia, comparing with the previous ones?
As I see now that United States step by step makes sanctions and all of the steps to countering Russia is more and more strict, more and more clear. And I saw in news now that today that the Senate, I think, prepare a new bill to create a system of sanctions, system of all of, and even to create a new coordination center for sanctions between the United States and the European Union to make all of the sanctions in financial sphere, in defense sphere, in energy sphere, like very well coordinated and very concentrated to
well targeted.
Yeah. So I think this is like a very right trend, and I think it will be more and more sensitive for Russia to get it this year, and I hope next year it will be more concentrated, more targeted, and more clear, and put on the right dots in Russia.
That it will be more effective.
Yeah, more effective, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your interesting comments, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
That was Mykhailo Samus, Deputy Director for International Affairs at the Center for Army Conversion and Disarmament Studies. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more with UATV.